call your name, please come to the office with your belongings for the end of the day. I was just talking about. Have a wonderful day.
I think that was 28% of our population there.
Yeah, not quite, but
we're working there, right? We're working our way there.
That's created a whole nother level of just classroom management discipline. It's a constant every 5 minutes. Hey, put your mask on. Hey, pull your mask up. Over your nose, please. Over your nose.
Everyone is trying to build the plane as we're flying it. And even with the amount of planning and preparation that we've had, that's still kind of the case. We're trying to do this and figuring it out. And it's like each week brings new things that you think you should have thought of, but you hadn't thought of.
I have learned that I absolutely hate remote learning because it's not what I signed up for as a teacher. It's harder, it's very impersonal.
Well, it's reduced my job to sitting in this chair, looking at 3 or 4 different screens, and talking to kids who are sitting out there.
You know, talking specifically about leniency, I would have to say that I am more lenient on some things and less on others. You know, and a good example of that would be wearing a mask. You know, typically I have some students who don't want to wear their mask. It can be a behavioral thing, but because of where the district is at on their safety and security and logistics plan, you know, I don't feel like I can be lenient on that.
Our whole teaching style is based on building relationships with kids. And since only half of our kids are actually in the building, we have trouble building relationships with them remotely. And so it makes it very difficult.
To me, that is something that has to be done. But then on the flip side of that, you know, I find myself wanting to be more lenient to consider their social emotional needs. And, you know, like I've got some students who have some behaviors. I have some students who, you know, might have to go into quarantine and then they have to transition out. You know, they might just be having a day where they're really stressed, or they might think that there's someone in their life who might have COVID.
So we've had to add a lot of extra steps into making sure kids get online. So we will text them on our cell phones. We will call their moms and say, hey, can you go wake them up to make sure they're online? We will find one of their friends and say, hey, can you text him to make sure he's awake and he's online? So there's a lot of extra steps that have been involved there. So
I started the year as a remote teacher, and so I have to have some leniencies on behavior because I can't control things. Like I often told people that every day is pajama day for remote learning, whether I want it to be or not.
I would say I'm probably more lenient because I kind of feel like they've been through enough of trauma and stuff. So being more understanding that things are stressful and kind of letting things go a little bit more.
I would say I'm not less lenient. I would say just more aware of what's happening and more sensitive to how it's affecting my students. I still have the same high expectations for my students.
I think especially in this environment with these kids and not knowing what they're dealing with at home, I started out a lot more lenient, been tightening up a little bit more as we go. As far as teaching style, it's changed a lot. Last year in second grade, not much at all on technology, on Chromebooks, and we've had days in here this year that, you know, we're spending the whole day, almost the whole day on technology, exploring and finding resources and finding what we need to make it through without using so much paper that I have to handle, paper that I have to grade or give back to work on again the following day. So when we're on technology, we can continue things, you know, day by day and save drafts and things like that.
It's hard on the kids because some of the kids don't necessarily understand why they're being held remote when their parents have health concerns, or some of the kids know that their parents have health concerns and that they can't go in person and they miss their friends. So the kids that are stuck remote, it's really hard on because they just don't. Sure, they're talking to their kids at school through Zoom, but it's not the same.
For the kids, there's a lot of waiting because I might be helping a kid here, and a kid in class will ask me a question, and I'll have to say, "Hey, just a second, I got to finish this test with him, and then I'll help you, and then I'll help you, and then I will help you."
Well, I have a lot that are stressed about any cleaning things, anybody touching their stuff, so there's a lot of, I think, stress and anxiety over it.
Kind of even going beyond that, just the general anxiety that we all seem to be living in, and kids picking up on that. Right now, for me, it's quarantines. Like I have a kindergartner who is in the middle of 24 days, a 24-day quarantine. I have a fourth grader who's quarantined. I had twin girls who were quarantined for 2 weeks. I have a third grade boy who's getting ready to go into his second round of quarantine. And so the problem is, we've been instructed, and I understand why, but, for special ed services, those kids are just treated as absent, like they were out sick. And so, how, they're missing instruction. And so having them trying to navigate, kids who are behind and missing more instruction than they already have been.
The ones who are remote or have not been able to come in for some reason, they're losing out on the quality of service. I think it's a lot harder to do over Zoom.
It's been hard on the students. It's been super, super hard, especially the kids who are remote and kids that are actually dealing with family members who have COVID-19, and then we lost like our football players, because they were all in quarantine, so they were gone for 14 days, and some of them didn't come back, and they're still online. So it's been super hard. Just they're just learning to deal with change every day.
Also seeing a couple of students that it's just taking them a little bit longer to get back into a routine. They're still a little bit slower than others that are just taking off at this point in the year.
So you might show up in person, but then you've been exposed, and so now you have to go to quarantine, and now you're online, and you didn't plan on ever being online. So it's just, if you don't deal well with change.
We don't have to fight masks very much, things of that sort. They understand. They've seen the virus on TV. They've heard the virus from mom and dad. They just know that things are going to be different, and this is what I have to do.
I think that's really dependent on what their views are. I mean, a couple of things, but I think whatever their family views are.
It depends on the student.
I think it depends on the family. You will see families, you'll see students outside at recess when they're allowed to have the mask off and they're wearing their mask because they're a little bit anxious, they're a little bit nervous.
I've got some kids who only wear a mask because it's a school rule, and they make their views on the origins of the pandemic clearly known and the reason why it's so prevalent in our society, and it is not, it's a different view.
You'll have students that say, this is all a hoax, my mom says so, or my dad says so. It's a little bit more challenging working with them, and we have to go about it more like, well then, okay, it's a rule. And to be here at school with us, you have to follow the rules. I do too, and I don't like it, but we have to do it. So it just kind of depends on the family and what they've been exposed to at home.
Then, that it's a legitimate concern and threat. Right. And then I've got some who, are very much stressed about it. And, they, so coping, I mean, I think they want to be closer to people they care about. They talk more about people they care about.
Some students who are very much aware. I had one student whose family has some big health issues, and he is very aware of that, and he knows that he can't be in school because of the pandemic.
I think the kids are coping okay, unless the kids that are affected directly by the coronavirus, and even the ones who know people who have tested positive, but they're okay. They don't worry about it. They don't think about it. They're just following the rules, wear my mask, 6 feet away, whatever. These rules are stupid. That's how the kids respond. But older people with multiple health problems like myself, it makes me a lot more nervous than any of the kids.
They're coping though. They're following the rules. They are keeping their masks on. Even and when I had barriers on my tables, initially I said, okay, since we have these barriers, we can take our masks off. And I saw a bunch of my kids chose to keep them on.
Other kids don't know so much, and I think some of the families don't know as much either. And they took remote learning as their option because they thought it would be easier on them, not understanding fully what the expectations would be for them. And so I don't think they fully were prepared for what remote learning and the pandemic had in store for them.
I think parts of the current situation are sustainable, not the way we're doing it now. It would be easier if we had all the kids in school or all the kids at home. But having half the kids here and half the kids online, that's really hard.
Yeah.
That's really hard. And all of our classes are set up that way. It's convenient that if a kid is sick at home and they call in sick, they can still log in and get our help. That's brilliant. That should stay. But having some kids here and some kids not here, and then if we go to the hybrid model where we'll have some kids here on one day, some kids not here on one day, and some kids it's a ridiculous amount of work.
Probably not, just because of the cases going up and like what we just heard. If cases were not going up, I think it would be fine. I felt like pretty comfortable up until a couple weeks ago that this was sustainable and it was going okay. But now with everything going up, I don't know that it is.
I think if you look at the system as a whole, the current, whatever we're doing right now isn't sustainable. But I'm going to say that I don't know what else could be done differently right now.
If I had to, I would say yes. I've been a lot more protective about my time and leaving work at work and doing less at home. I'm less stressed doing this than I was when I was remote teaching. That was stressful. That was 12 to 15 hours a day. Seeing an email pop up at 11 o'clock at night and feeling guilty because that parent worked until 10 o'clock at night and they can only message me at 11 o'clock at night. So feeling guilty and answering emails, and this is less stressful for me. It's not ideal, but if I had to do it, I'd do it. I could do it.
With masks and social distancing, I think we could do that until we need to. The kids, although may not like it, they get the point of the masks, and if you just set that boundary, if you set that rule, if you set that expectation, then they can follow it. The social distancing gets harder because they want to play with their friends. They want to go out and they want to play a game together. They want to work on a project together, and they can't, and that's harder. Is it sustainable? No, because I have students who at this point have missed half a year of school because remote learning is not effective for them. And so if they've had half a year of that, they're just missing out.
Is it sustainable for an entire building? I don't think so, because we have so many teachers out and we're having to pull subs and other teachers to fill those positions. And then just logistically, I guess, across the district, I don't think it's sustainable if we're all going to be getting sick and being quarantined for 2 weeks. Like, that just affects, there's so many ripple effects from one person being gone.
I think the system will be able to sustain this until you start seeing widespread illness among staff and students, even more so than we've seen already. I think that'll be what really grinds it all to a halt.
I am not able to get together with family. I've got a daughter in quarantine right now, so we can't get together for Thanksgiving. I've got a daughter getting married, and she's very worried about getting sick and her wedding party getting sick. So, I'm not seeing my family like I would like to be able to do, which is disappointing. We cope by making phone calls and texting a lot because my kids are texters. Calling my parents instead of going to see them, and that's about all we can do. Maybe we'll do FaceTime Thanksgiving or something.
Yeah.
But, it's not the same, but it's something. At least we're still trying to stay connected.
Oh, personally, I kind of enjoy challenges, and I'm always afraid of complacency, like people who do the same job year after year. So I think the really good teachers accept the challenge, and they want to be challenged at their job, and it forces you in a situation where you have to come up with ways to teach synchronously. Who knew we would ever have to do that? Nobody planned for that. And so the challenge part of it, I appreciate. I really don't mind that. The amount of work that we've had to do is almost overwhelming because it never ends and you're always behind. And then on the far end of the spectrum is that I also worry about the health part of it too, because I am an old man with multiple health problems. So that part worries me the most.
When I talk about the toll that this has on me, it's not just the fact that I'm a teacher for the district. It's also the fact that I'm president of our teachers association. And so I would say that the higher toll that this situation is having on me in terms of my time and effort and focus, I mean, professionally has been just from everything that's come with that position. But I mean, it's wearing. I feel like, you feel like you don't have the time to do what you need to do. You feel like there's always more that can be done. I mean, I feel like I could work all night long and then into the morning, and still not have everything done. But then that really illustrates what the other toll is for me. And that's, it's the fact that you can spend the amount of time working to get the work done, but then what have you lost out on by spending that time working? And so it's time with your family, time with your friends, as it were, time on self-care, things like that.
Personally, well, I can talk about my own family, where we have, 2 kids that started college, and that's been a challenge. College is not normal. They went off to college. Luckily, they're less than an hour away. They're coming home every weekend because they don't like it. They're in masks all day. They don't know what their teachers look like. They don't know what their new friends look like. They're having to split up into smaller groups and smaller classes, or classes that are moving online, and they're paying big bucks to do it. My husband's job has changed, so we took about a $3,000 a month hit in our income. So now he's at a second job where he's out of town a lot. So kids have moved out, husband's out of town a lot, it's just me, which I mean is good for mental health too, because I have my time. But it's changed our family dynamics a lot too. So like I said, I try to be protective of my time and myself as much as I can, and keep school here, and and try to compartmentalize, but it's hard.
Really just trying to suppress the anxiety, but it's definitely there. As much as I want to deny it or pretend it's not there, it is, and it's very real. My parents both tested positive, and they're out in Colorado, so I didn't get to see them, but my dad has other health issues, so it was scary for a while with him, and still kind of scary, but I don't think I really sat down and totally processed all of this. Like, this was only supposed to be 2 weeks and back in March, and now it's turned into 6 months, or longer. But so I'd say, like, as time goes on, I think it's affecting me more and more, and I'm just ready for this to go away, and I'm sure everybody feels that way, but just ready to not be so worried. Like, I just didn't even realize how worried I was, because now anytime anybody says they're sick, it's like, oh, I have to stay away from you, and you have, like, I didn't want to be this freaked out and anxious about it, but like I said, the more time goes on, I think it's really getting more and more present, and I'm realizing it, processing it. How am I coping? I mean, we're staying home as much as we can. just really trying to still live normal life. I still play volleyball on Thursday nights at the YMCA in Wichita. Is that probably the safest choice for my family? Probably not, but I mean, it's a personal thing. I have to get out of my house.
Yeah.
You have to get out sometimes. So my husband started working out. I started working out. So that was been a positive change for us both. And then my son sees that. So
Yeah.
it's been good for us, but at the same time,
Yeah.
it's hard.
What are you doing to help you cope with the issues like the overworking? Like, what are you doing for you you drinking bourbon at night?
Yes. Hot toddies. There has to come a time where I have to separate my home life from my work life. So if I have to sit here and work until 7 o'clock at night, I'll do that. But then once I go home, it's just home. I don't take anything home. I bring my computer home in case we get quarantined or whatever, but I don't do any work at home. I will stay here. Even on Sunday afternoons, before football started, Sunday afternoons I would come back here and do some work and then go back home. So I really try to separate work and home. I really have to have that separation for my own sanity.
Yeah.
Because if I was sitting at home trying to get things done while my computer's open, while I'm trying to talk to people, I just can't.